I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time when a scroll chuck, a faceplate, a mandrel, or other screw-on tool will seize up or become stuck on your lathe. So I want to take some time out from my traditional project videos and show you several methods that you could use in order to get these stuck tools off of your lathe. And this is not one of the methods. Or is this? Or this? Though it's pretty tempting. I recently had the worst seized chuck I have ever had in my entire time of turning. And you can see here I actually bent a steel bar trying to get it off, and it wouldn't come off. I have used various chemicals and catalyst oils that penetrate and help loosen up like rusted bolts or almost friction welded metal together. And if you do take this method, you'll spray in between the joints and at least let it sit for a day, and make sure that you cover your lathe to catch any excess dripping. Another method you could try is using channel locks or a pair of vice grips or a pair of channel locks or pipe wrenches, and these work pretty well, although there is one drawback to it, and that is it could mar your lathe spindle with the teeth, as you can see here, which it did on mine and on the other side as well here, but it works fairly well, and it didn't cause any run out on the spindle. Another method that I use that works when the chuck is fairly stuck is using the chuck jaws and using it for extra leverage. I'll put a piece of metal in there and then I'll pull down on the metal, and that'll usually break it free. If it's really tight, you might want to take a hammer or a sledgehammer and bang on the piece of metal, and that will usually loosen it with the vibration. But as I mentioned earlier, this didn't work this time for me. Another variation on the leverage method was to put a piece of wood or a spindle in your chuck jaws, and preferably the wood should be square, and you could usually tighten this or turn it with your hand, or you can use some sort of a wrench on the wood, and sometimes that will loosen the chuck. Another method that I use often and works quite well is a pair of rubber straps. Rubber straps are really nice because they won't mar your lathe at all. You just have to make sure that each strap is being pulled in the opposite direction. On my lathe, I use the hand wheel because the strap doesn't fit around the spindle. It's too small. And this method works well unless it's really tight again. Then the straps just keep slipping. And I've even tried bar clamps, and you wouldn't think that this works, but sometimes it does. As long as you have a flat area, or at least two flat areas, where you can clamp the clamp on, like here on this faceplate, or sometimes chuck adapters have flat areas or flat spots for wrenches, which is another method. If you have these flat spots like here on the faceplate and the wrench is thin enough, or you can use some spanners, you could use a wrench or adjustable wrench on here to remove the plates. And even my mandrel here that I use for bottle stoppers has two flat areas for a wrench, which is nice. I wish my lathe spindle had that. Here's a method that works well, but you have to have the tools to do it. You can get a pneumatic impact wrench, and it has to be a good one. This is just a drill for demonstration purposes, but make sure your spindle is locked, and then tighten the chuck jaws down on the socket on the impact wrench, and then put it in reverse and turn it on, and that sometimes works. Another method is one that is very similar to the leverage method that I showed earlier, and that you use a bar, steel or wood, in the chuck jaws, and then use your banjo and tool rest instead of the lathe bed. That sometimes will work. But you can put some dings in your tool rest this way. Depending on what kind of chuck you have, you may use your chuck key as another method. I can't because I have a ball joint on mine, but if you don't, or if you have a crank key or something like that, you could use this as a method to get your chuck off. So here's a method that I have yet to try. Some lathes have a hole through the spindle, and obviously if you have one of those lathes you wouldn't be watching this video, but there's a hole and you use your drawbar to go through it and it locks the spindle in place. Now I have thought of actually taking this off and drilling a hole through my spindle, but I have been reluctant to do that because I don't want to mess up my spindle at all. But I guess if you're really desperate and don't want to leave the chuck on your lathe permanently, that may be an option for you. Lastly, you can use a spindle lock if you have one. I do have one, but it's not meant for this purpose. If I use this spindle lock to try and remove a stuck chuck or faceplate, I will break all the gear teeth for my indexing. It's only meant for indexing on my lathe. But in the end, it wasn't just one method, but a combination of a few methods that ended up getting the chuck off the lathe, and then eventually the chuck adapter off the lathe. So I used a catalyst oil. It's called penetrating oil, rust release, all kinds of names for it. I let that sit for a day, and I applied a lot of the oil. Basically drowned it. And I also used a steel bar in the jaws, and I used vice grips to lock my spindle down, and then I used a 5-pound sledgehammer and whapped that several times close to the chuck, and that released the chuck. And then I used a similar method for my chuck adapter, except for using an adjustable wrench. And this is the actual video of me releasing the adapter from my lathe that's been stuck on there for 2 weeks. Number one cause for a stuck chuck or faceplate or any other accessory for the lathe is unbalanced wood. Or I should say most often that is the number one cause. Another possible cause is the sheer weight of what type of wood you're using and the weight of the chuck, or just the weight of the chuck by itself could cause the chuck to become stuck. Now with this one, unfortunately I speak from experience. You want to make sure that you're removing your accessory in the proper direction or else you could really tighten it to the lathe or to itself. The next cause is also from experience, sadly. And we all have those days, especially in the morning. So you'll want to make sure or remember to loosen all of your grub screws or set screws and make sure those are not tight on your chuck or spindle adapter or any other tool that you're trying to loosen. The next possible cause is run out. If your spindle or chuck or accessory is not quite balanced or trued, it could cause the item to become stuck on your lathe. And using a dial indicator, here I have a base on mine, but you can get these fairly cheap online, and they're pretty accurate. You can test your chuck or your spindle for any run out. And as you can see here, I don't have really any run out. And the last possible cause I'm going to mention is similar to Morse tapers. You want to keep any debris or dust out of your threads on your accessories or on your spindle. There's not a lot of room between the machined parts, and any of that can make your accessories get stuck. Well, first and foremost, you should always keep your parts clean. I'm guilty of letting that slide at times, but make sure you clean the threads on your spindle, the threads on your adapters, your chucks, your other lathe accessories, and I usually clean them with pipe cleaners and rags, just like I do with my Morse tapers. But the most popular method of prevention is using a nylon or plastic washer on your spindle. And I'm not being sponsored by any company here, but I have started to use these, I will admit, and they work very well. And you could buy them online from various places, or you can make your own. However, as good as these sound, there is two possible drawbacks, and I'd like to mention them. One being run out. As you can see here, there's very little run out with just the adapter and no washer. But when I add the washer, you can see that there is a bit more run out than there is without the washer. And when I add the washer to other accessories, it's the same thing. And I know that my dial indicator, which is a great tool, I recommend you have one in your shop, is fairly accurate because I use it throughout my shop on various other tools for accuracy. I use it on my drill press, my table saw, etc. And I've also tried different situations. The chuck without the jaws, the chuck with small bowl jaws, with long spigot, sawtooth jaws, heavier jaws, and with or without the washer, and the results are usually the same. And the second issue that I'd like to mention when using a nylon or plastic washer is the possibility of having additional vibration, which can lead to your cuts not being as smooth or as clean, and the possibility of more tear, but not a lot. What's going on here? So I did a couple of tests to see if there's any vibration, and there is a little, as you would expect, with the washer, hence there's more run out, and it's not a lot, but it's some. So I'd also like to mention this disclaimer. I have to throw it out there, sorry. This video may not cover, and probably does not cover, all the possible methods or approaches that could be taken to resolve a stuck chuck or lathe accessory. But these are the methods that I have used in the past that have worked for me and for the equipment that I currently use. I know this is a broad issue to address, but hopefully some of these tips and methods will help you in your shop. So with that being said and out of the way, please let me know if you've enjoyed this video. It's different than my normal project videos, and I'd like to get some feedback from some people on it. If you'd like me to continue making videos of this kind or type, please just let me know. So I hope you found this video helpful. So please stay safe in your shop at all times, and until next time, take care. Thank you.